On day 4 of our Irish road trip, we headed toward the Cliffs of Moher and passed by Dungaire Castle, a 16th century roundhouse. Next, we saw the ruins of Muckinish Castle, a tower house dating back to 1450. We arrived at the car park at the Cliffs, and Chris saw our first Wild Atlantic Way sign and felt compelled to pay homage to the Slaws, some of our favorite YouTubers. We'll put a link in the notes down below. He did a classic Mr. Slaw point. It's very cool that they built all these little shops into the hillside on the backside of the cliffs. Where you see this arched window is the entrance to the visitor center. It has exhibits, bathrooms, and 2 restaurants. Follow the links down below for more information. Once we got on higher ground, the wind was so bad that we had to cut the audio. This was our first look at the Cliffs of Moher over to the left. At the very end of the point, you can see Hag's Head, which is our destination. But where we're starting is way on the other side, at O'Brien's Tower. We're going to take a look there, and then we'll walk all the way across the cliffs back to the other side. Come on and join us. So it's a pretty good walk up here. You can either come by a trail that's handicap accessible, or you can take the steps up to the top. So this is O'Brien's Tower here at the north end of the cliffs. It's the place where I said I think they're using it to age whiskey now. And it was a folly, which was not a real castle. It was a faux castle that this landowner built to impress his friends. It would impress me. The cliffs run from Liscannor on the south up to Doolin on the north for about 8.6 miles or 14 kilometers. The highest point near O'Brien's Tower is 702 feet or 214 meters. And the cliffs are estimated to be 320 million years old. Local musicians really added to the experience. You may have seen the cliffs in 1992's Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince as Horcrux Cave. And before that, in 1987's The Princess Bride.
See? The Cliffs of Insanity!
Now, no one has actually ever climbed the cliffs, but they have climbed the stacks. We'll show you that later.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable!
O'Brien's Tower was built in 1835. We'll give you a spin around. You can actually go up in the tower, but there was a long line and we had a lot of ground to cover that day. So we had to skip that part. While I was filming the tower, Chris took a stroll to take a look at the northern part of the cliffs, looking toward Doolin. O'Brien's Tower is actually about in the middle of the cliffs, and the northern section of the cliffs is a little lower, but still very beautiful. We saw a lot of signs warning us about the dangers of the cliffs. So we were a little concerned about coming to the cliffs, especially knowing it's really windy here, because we've heard terrible things about tourists falling over once in a while. But as you can see, the walls are actually pretty high. We're here on the steps. The walls are about shoulder height maybe, so I think we're pretty safe here. We met a couple from China, and after taking their picture, they were kind enough to return the favor. Just 5 minutes down the path, you could look back and see how far we'd actually come. This was the stack that we mentioned before. It's actually 90 meters tall, or more than 20 stories. As we came to the edge of the official Cliffs of Moher experience property, we were met with a sobering memorial. Between 1993 and 2017, 66 deaths were recorded at the cliffs. Once you leave the Cliffs of Moher experience property, the path is less protected. You do well to stay behind the barriers where you can. We'll use a little faux drone footage here to give you a peek over the edge. If you're interested in how we did this, stick around and we'll show you a little farther down the path. You'll find that the farther you get from O'Brien's Tower, the thinner the crowds will be. You'll also notice that the terrain gets a little more challenging at this point. You know how we mentioned staying behind the barriers when you can? Yeah, well, there's that. We decided a fall over the cliff might ruin a perfectly good vacation, so we'll stay here. Although it had gotten sunny and much warmer, the wind was still really strong. And just in case you were wondering, there's only one person who's ever been known to have fallen over the cliff and survived. I'm just saying. So at one point, this dirt trail veered to the right, and we ended up on the wrong side of the wall here. So we promptly found a low place and hopped back over for the protection of the wall. So this was kind of what happened before. Now we're in an unprotected area again. So if you were wondering about that faux drone footage we shot before, here's how it went. We'd only done this once before. And when I was shooting it, Chris said he didn't know whether he should hold on to my ankles or just stay back from the edge and wish me well. Funny thing is, it was a little different doing it at the Cliffs of Moher than it was doing it at Indiana Dunes State Park back home. We used my iPhone mounted to a 9-foot telescoping selfie stick. It's going to take some practice. Here we could see some of the tour boats cruising along the cliff coast. We finally arrived at the base of the Hag's Head Peninsula. As we continued down the path, we came upon a big area of cairns. Cairns are waymarkers made from stacking rocks. During the late 19th and early 20th century, this was a dumping ground of flagstone for a local quarry. Visitors to the area started stacking them into cairns. That tapping sound that you hear in the background, that's the quarry, still operating. Looking back, we could see the spectacular rock formations along the southern edge of the cliffs here. Looking down the northern side of Hag's Head, we could see a cave and a natural stone arch, spectacular features caused by that 320 million years of water erosion. So you can see all the waves coming in, facing this way, facing, I guess that would be north. And as we are getting closer to the other tower, we've got rock walls on both sides of us again, because we got dropped off here, and we got water over there not too far. So on we go. So let's talk a little bit about the Hag's Head Formation. It's called that because it looks like an old crone. If you see it from the sea, you can actually see the face pretty easily. But if you're looking at it from the land, it's not so easy. From this side, it's tough, so we added a bit of artwork to help you see it. There she is. On the opposite side of the path, away from the cliffs, is Lisconnor Bay. You also see the path that leads into Lisconnor and a private car park that you can park in for just a few euros. There's the stile you climb over to get down to the car park or get up if you're coming from that direction. The only problem, no toilets there. And we finally reached our destination, Moher Tower. Moher Tower is the ruin of a Napoleonic-era watchtower. They used it to watch for the invasion of Napoleon's navy in the early 1800s. But it's actually the site of a much earlier promontory fort, a defensive fort dating back to possibly as early as the Iron Age. So now let's take a look at just how far we've come from O'Brien's Tower. It took us a little under 2 hours to make it out to the end, but that included time for gawking at the scenery and filming things. And as we head back, we want to remind you that if you're enjoying our videos, please hit the round button with our faces on it on the left to subscribe, or hit the square on the right to see more of our videos. And as we pass these lovely cows, we'll say, Ton Diner Re, which means, time for dinner. See you next week.